I'm very excited to be part of this AMWC webinar. My name is Dr. Sofra. I have a doctorate in neurophysiology from City University London and a doctorate in clinical psychology from the New School of Social Research in New York City. Today, we're going to be talking about Empower the Woman. Recently, I published about 11 articles, and most of them are related to this subject matter. So I included in the presentation. Number one problem is hormonal imbalance. And it's not about replenishing one hormone, it's how these hormones interact and the position of these hormones in the normal range. 3 to 3 can be close to the bottom of the normal range, can evolve into the onset of the hypothyroid disorder. So a preventive perspective focuses on the rate of differentiation. That means how the hormones interact and how they change, the small changes, the minor imbalances within normalcy before they're exacerbated into a medical disorder. Very important part is that the metabolism slows down with age. So you have what we call the decreased basal metabolic rate, BMR. And this is the paper that I published on how to get rid of visceral fat. What we found is that we used a new alternative to exercise, a new method. And we found that after 12 treatments, BMR was significantly increased. And it was actually increased on all subjects. It was 97.44%. Now, the other problem is the visceral fat. Unfortunately, visceral fat cannot be removed by lasers or RF because it wraps itself up around the vital organs and invades them. And that's how we have what we call the fatty liver. There are some studies that claim that they have removed visceral fat. However, there are methodological problems with these studies. Number one, by Duarte et al., they did a couple of studies. In the first one, they claimed that there was visceral fat decrease, but they also combined laser and exercise, so we don't know which one produced that decrease. In the second one, they did not find any decrease. And then you had the study that was not a peer-reviewed study in the Bulletin of Chiron University, that they talk about reducing visceral fat, but when they're looking at the results, they just talk about basically overall fat. With this technology that we use, the recent technology is not a laser, it's not a RF. It was developed in London University. We did 12 treatments, and we found a significant decrease of visceral fat, 30.34% decrease, and an increase in 3 to 3 by 30%. Again, that's a published study. It was published in the Journal of Aesthetic Nursing. And another study that, again, recently published, it was about the adverse effects of sedentary lifestyles. Here we looked at diabetics and pre-diabetics. And again, we found a significant decrease of visceral adipose tissue. But 7 of these diabetic subjects provided their sonogram reports, and they had fatty liver before the treatments and no fatty liver after the 12 treatments. That substantiated the results of the visceral adipose tissue decrease. We also found a significant decrease of both fasting blood glucose, PP, and insulin fasting and insulin PP. There was a significant decrease before and after. And there was a significant reduction in CM in the upper abdomen and umbilicus, which are the parts where the visceral fat accumulates. And my co-author was Dr. Sheetal Badami. All of the subjects were from India. That's another one. That's actually a different study. It was a case study, and it was from Iraq, and it was 8 treatments. This is a study that we did in Hong Kong. I did this actually. It was just 1 treatment. Can we get the same results with exercise? The problem is that you need very strenuous exercise to get rid of visceral fat. And overtraining causes a hormone imbalance. You see an inverse testosterone cortisol relationship where testosterone declines and cortisol increases. Well, when you increase cortisol, you're going to increase hunger. And testosterone, again, you're going to decrease energy, you're going to increase hunger. So it can be a problem. Now, what we saw, that's another study that I recently published, we looked at a mean average testosterone increase of 62.18%. It was very significant. Significance comes when all the subjects have the benefit or present a benefit. The mean average cortisol decrease was 7.33, minus 7.33. So you have here the opposite of strenuous exercise because the body is not stressed, where testosterone increases and cortisol decreases. Now, decreased cortisol will reduce hunger. There is some other components, leptin and ghrelin imbalance. Leptin is the anorexic hormone, and ghrelin is the orexogenic hormone. It increases appetite. So when you have an imbalance in these two hormones, what happens? That increases hunger, you consume more food, that increases weight gain. The weight gain and the adipose tissue, the fat cells also have toxins, so that increases toxicity and it becomes a vicious circle. So again, ghrelin, the hunger hormone, leptin, the anorexic hormone. Again, the combined lasers and exercise, and they found a decrease in leptin. But that's the opposite result of what we would want, because that would increase hunger. And most likely it's because the exercise will increase hunger. You expend the energy, there's energy expenditure. So you increase hunger to replenish the energy in the system. What we found is a documented increase in leptin and a decrease in ghrelin. And also we found that the subjects reported that there were decreased cravings for fatty foods and sweets, yet normal appetite after 12 treatments with this new technology that was developed in London University. And here is the article. Again, it was published in Scientific Research. It's called The Importance of Systemic Balance in Safeguarding Health. And basically, it looked at all the same variables, like all the other studies, like visceral fat and increased muscle mass and VLDL, triglycerides, which actually we always saw a significant decrease of both VLDL and triglycerides, and 33, which increased in all studies very consistently. But we also looked at leptin and ghrelin. And this is the actual results. There was a 10.82 increase in leptin and a minus 7.35% of decrease in ghrelin. Again, all these results were very significant. Sunday Times wrote an article in 1994 when Gerry Pollock first kind of presented his invention of simulated effortless exercise. Before he presented this technology in 1994, an article by another professor in London University came out, and it was an article on cells. And they were looking at the increase in RNA content in the muscles, and he found like 200% of RNA content in the muscles, and a repression of the fast type genes and activation of the skeletal slow type genes. Very important issue as the woman ages, the estrogen declines. So bleeding and burning sensations during intercourse are very common, and that leads to low self-confidence and of course to interpersonal conflicts or neglect. There comes the vaginal rejuvenation procedures. So in the pursuit of happiness, women attempt to resolve a psychodynamic issue, the roller coaster of aging, by merely altering the vaginal physique. We looked at a number of these studies. Some of them do not use valid standardized tests to assess sexual satisfaction. For example, Allison et al. Study reports 23 out of 25 subjects reported sexual satisfaction. But when you looked at them, only 9 out of 25 subjects reported increased orgasms. This is not significant results. Other studies, laser vaginal rejuvenation studies, use the FSFI, which is quite common in these studies. It's used quite a lot. It's a standardized instrument, and reported 92.9% reported increased satisfaction, but 90.9% is not really a significant result. There are other problems. None of the studies understand the complexity of all the hormonal interactions and the psychology of the woman, and none of them look at quality of life. The other problem is the FDA in 2018 stated that the full extent of the risks of these laser and RF and vaginal rejuvenation by plastic surgery procedures is unknown. And some of the reports indicate that some of these procedures could cause serious harm. What we did in these 2 articles is I looked at the number of studies on vaginal rejuvenation. I looked at a number of women that we correlated their FSFI scores with the lie scale, the hysteria scale, and the depression scale of the MMPI, which is a very valid psychological instrument, and also the differential emotional scales. And what we found is that 98% of these women were basically organized around joy, shame, and sadness. So underneath that positive persona, there was sadness and shame. Because of their high lie scale, it was suspected that they were not completely honest. And we also looked at therapy notes, and we found out that they were happy with satisfying their partners, but their sexual satisfaction was simply not there. So empowering the woman is very important because females are often in charge in keeping the family together. Therefore, unhappy females will lead to unhappy relationships. In order to empower the woman, we have to understand the woman, and we have to allow her to assert herself without the fear of judgment. So my caution to vaginal rejuvenation doctors is in assessing female satisfaction with short self-report questionnaires like the FSFI. You need to be careful because they may be insufficient in assessing the richness of the female psychology and the female dynamics. Therefore, the conclusions that you draw from your short self-report questionnaires that basically claim satisfaction may in fact be false or invalid. And this is the board of different clinicians that are conducting research for us, different research projects on hormonal balance, hunger, lipids, cholesterol, inflammation, etc., diabetes, and so on. And with this, I would like to end my presentation and thank you very much for including me in this wonderful AMWC webinar. Thank you.